Banned from LinkedIn. Banned from Facebook. Now broadcasting from the jungles of South America. Find out everything they don't want you to know. This is BizUnLearned.
And it's interesting as well, because it's like, obviously in terms of project management, yes, there are lots of methodologies, but the thing about it, at the end of the day, every single person, every human on this planet is a project manager. Because if you boil it down, essentially a project is anything where there are multiple sequential steps. And it can be building the ISS through to kind of like taking your kids on holiday, or even just putting up a shelf. They're all projects. So for me, the key is like, and it's, I was actually thinking about this because obviously India was coming on the call, and it's almost like, because project actually focuses on the project, what you should almost call it is outcome management.
Hey, it's Cowboy and Mark coming at you again this week. Geez, we're at episode 18. We're moving right along here. And we got a new guest for you, and it's always going to be entertaining. So as always, Mark, lead us in.
Well, everybody, this is a chap I've known for about 3 years or so. Have we been introduced?
More like 4 or 5.
Is it that many? But we know each other through people. Through my secretary in 1987, Ali dates back to. So that's the genesis of the relationship. So we kind of go back vicariously. And the reason I wanted Pete on the call, everybody, is I'm going to put him under the banner, and he's going to change this and do his stuff, of the customer journey supremo, and the whole thinking through my stuff, relationship management with people and the customers and people you're involved with. And in the work Pete and I have done together, and through those other people that I know him through, then that's the maestro area. I know it doesn't do him justice because there's other things he does. And our way into these things, Pete, is to give you the opportunity to open up with and do with it what you will, the BizUnLearned rant. So our way of letting you introduce yourself is you can just rant in your lovely radio manner, or any form thereof, on what's the business world from your purview on it? What's it got to unlearn? What's getting in the way of people? Because the complaining and the it's not working narrative out there is off the charts. I've never seen it like this in all my business life. So there you go, Pete. You take it from there. The BizUnLearned rant, do with it what you will.
Okay. Hi, folks. My name is Peter. I'm from the UK. And as Mark says, I've basically been working business for about 25 years. And I've seen it from lots of different camera angles. And I think my take on the business, on the rant, is going to be basically a continuous journey from the customer point of view. I love seeing things from the customer point of view, and a lot of businesses don't. A lot of businesses kind of get into their own mindset in terms of like, this is really important to us, or this is really important to us. We can't do that because that department doesn't talk to that. So what I want to do is basically show you. I'm just going to move over to my little whiteboard here.
Loves a bit of this, Billy. Loves a whiteboard.
Okay.
I just like drawing things.
Yes.
Also, it means that you don't have to look at my face for a second, which some people are quite happy about. So what we're going to do is basically look at a railway line, because what you want to do is basically have your customer journey as like a railway line. And it basically starts off here from this person who has no idea who you are through to, look at this, boys and girls, we have multiple colors. This person who absolutely loves you and refers all of your friends to you. Now, I've worked in quite a few businesses. One of the biggest problems that you have is silos. You've got marketing, then you've got sales, then you've got customer services. And it's almost, for a lot of people, because don't forget, with the people, it's like a relationship with your business. So when they engage with you, it's kind of like, you imagine that you get together with someone. You basically got like a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And as you progress through the relationship, they change, they become someone else. And it's almost like all the stuff that you talked about in the previous part of your relationship, they have no idea of. And it's like, you're not the person that I kind of fell in love with. We've probably all had relationships like that. But what you don't want to do is give your customer that relationship. So what we want to do is basically have a nice seamless journey all the way through from them basically discovering you So this is basically, things like your marketing. So where you're basically positioning yourself, and what you want to be doing is you want to be positioning yourself as like the trusted expert. So regardless of whether you're in the service industry, so you're a consultancy, or indeed you're somebody who sells a physical product, you want to be somebody that people think of first and they go, those guys know what they're talking about. What you then want to do is basically bring them up to buying temperature. So this is basically where the sale happens. And you can think of this, there's a guy called Jonathan Morris, and he wrote a book on human behavior. And he basically said with every relationship, there's like a journey that happens. So you start out by seeing somebody across a room, and then you start by talking to them, and then you give them your telephone number, and then you go on a first date. And then if that works out, you enter into a long-term relationship. You may get married. You may have kids. It's exactly the same sort of thing. But just in the same way with a human relationship, there are steps that you have to go through. So what we want to do is basically go through marketing. We then basically want to kind of like build up the love, bring them up to buying temperature where they go, I like this person. I like what they've got to offer. And also we're basically offering them the right sort of person or the right sort of product or service. So because you've got lots of different customers up here, you've got this guy and you've got this guy, and they're all slightly different and they want different things. So what we basically do is we bring them up to buying temperature, and then we go, okay, that's fine. You want that. For you, that's good. That's great for you. That's great for you. And then what we want to do, because again, the other problem that you then have with a lot of companies is that they'll make the sale and then that's it. Their customer service is often a little bit questionable. And also what they don't do is then basically leverage the relationship that they've got to basically have more sales, whether that's going to be an upsell or a cross-sell or referral or something like that. So the thing which is kind of like underpinned everything which I've done over the years is basically say, right, how do we basically create this relationship? And what you want to do is, and these, by the way, these are all what we call touch points. So you just want to say at each point, when these guys are touching base with you, what's the experience like? How tailored is it to them? How much are you looking like you care? How much are you helping them make the right choice? How much are you informing them about their world and their threats and their opportunities? How much are you making them love you?
Moments of truth.
Yes. So, and what you want to be able to do is to make sure that each point on that customer journey, you're coherent and you're consistent so that they feel like they are just getting to know the same person who is a good, trusted and friendly expert better and better and better. And when they've made the sale, they're not getting buyer's remorse. They're going, no, this was really, really good. I want to do more with this person. And I'm also going to start to tell my friends about it. Because the companies that get this wrong are the ones who then spend so much money on marketing, because what they're having to do is fight against word of mouth. They're kind of like motoring against the current rather than sailing with it. So that, in a nutshell, is my rant. So if you want to make sure that you've got like a good business, then what you want to do is look at the customer journey, and most importantly, look at it from the customer's point of view. Yeah, because they don't always necessarily understand their situation. A lot of guys will go, oh, feature this or feature that. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what that means. And also, do I care about it until I know what it does for me? So that's kind of my thing, is design the customer journey, make sure that each touch point flows logically, that you're slowly building them up to buying temperature, just as the same way as, if you're going on a date, it starts to move to that wonderful moment. But also once you've had that wonderful moment, call them in the morning. End of rant.
If you want to see them again. So let's pick up on one point there specifically in there, that without going too far on a stat attack. But if it's something like 68% of customers who leave company X to go to another company, they leave because they were ignored. So they weren't followed up, as you just touched on. It wasn't bad. It just, nothing happened. They bought something. No relationship was built. So if you take that stat and you throw in other little ones, like if it takes 5 contacts to do a deal, all those initial touch points with people and things. And yet, with my sales hat on, most sales guys don't stay in touch. They think you're going to buy today, or then they ignore you. So there's so many stats. And the one we use today that I found out only recently on LinkedIn, the stat that we now call Lucky 13, because it's normally called Unlucky 13, is 80% of deals on LinkedIn take 13 touches from a fairly reliable stat attack source on that. But so whether it's a lot by most people's standards. So there's all these stats that you're just touching on, but most of your touch points in there are going to literally fall apart for most people. So what's the unlearn? What have people got to go back to basics on in terms of the way they operate their business? Because they're not doing what you just drew, Pete. They're just ignoring people and or pissing them off.
I think a lot of it comes down to, and again, it goes back to coming back to the customer's point of view. It's what do they want? What do they want to know? Give them the biggest thing is, which I always say, because again, it is a railway line. And I say the thing about marketing is every single step is moving them on. And what you have to do is give them a really good reason to proceed. There's lots of guys out there, because I do lots of videos. There's a project which I'm working on at the moment where we're basically doing a video for somebody's site. And I said, but what's it about? And they said, well, it's all about us. And I went, yes and no. In terms of if you're just going to put like hi, we're XYZ products, and it's on the front of your website. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I said, yeah, but then we can put it out on social media. I said, no one's going to care. What you want to do is say, right, what problem are you solving? What question are you answering? What insight are you giving? And then make it around that. Because what you want to do is basically have, and again, I'll just drop back over here, is with all of your communications, you want to think of it like water. Yeah. So what you've then basically got is you've got information or education above the surface. Below the surface, it's positioning. Yeah. So this is where they go, aha. Give them an aha moment in whatever it is that they're doing. So they've got a valid reason to continue with you. But positioning, I really like these guys. And that's basically what people are failing to do, is they're failing to say, why are people engaging with this? What is going to propel them and keep them going through all those various contacts? And it's interesting as well, because if you actually think about it, what you've actually got is, and they say there's 13 touch points. Yes and no, if you know what I mean. It's like, yes, you can do. It depends on the complexity of the deal. The way that I look at it is, because in terms of they say, right, how many points of contact do you need? And it's what you've basically got is it's a runway. Yeah. So you've got your plane. This is a horrific plane. I would never get on board.
We've gone from trains now. We're into aviation now, and you're an aviator.
Absolutely. So, and people say, well, how many web pages or how long does a web page need to be? That's a classic thing which I always get answered. I said, okay, it depends on what it's trying to do.
As long as it needs to be is always the answer, right?
Exactly. So what you want to be able to do is say, I've got a runway because I'm going to lift off. Now, what you want to then do is say, how high are the trees at the end of the runway? And what I'm basically saying there is how much effort is required. So, for instance, if you're saying we're a B2B situation, this is a £1.5 million deal, those are some tall trees. The reason being is because when the customer is thinking, they're thinking about opportunities. One of the biggest things they're thinking is like, what happens if this goes sideways? Yeah. Am I going to get into trouble? And so a lot of the times, like people, if they're trying in that environment, they're trying to sell the benefits. But what they're not doing is underdressing one of the other key emotions, which is how do you make sure that they know that this is the right thing for them to be doing, if that makes sense. So what basically happens is you've got your runway and you then say, how long does this runway need to be for us to clear the trees? So if you've got, and again, the reason why I'm saying this is because there are some instances where it's all we're doing on a landing page is we're saying, sign up, just get some free information. And I've seen people who then said, so this landing page needs to be 17 folds high. And it's like, no, it really doesn't. Or you've then got somebody who says, right, yeah, I just want to sell my £3,000 course. And I just want like literally a quick video, paragraph of text, and then a buy now button. That is not a long enough runway. You're literally going to stack into the trees there. So, and the other thing as well is making sure, and again, this goes back to the customer journey part, is that what you do is you have, wherever possible, rather than just like, right, come here and buy something massive, it's always make sure that you're putting in steps so that they can, whether it's a test drive so they can sample your product, or there's a slightly cheaper version, give them the ability to hop up to the point whereby they can buy. Because with a lot of people, that's not what they're doing. And again, the reason why they're not doing it is because they're not looking at it from the customer's point of view. They're just going, well, it's this, and they might believe in their product. They say it's worth it. You know, all you need to do is you just need to explain it to the customer, and then they'll be fine. But the customer's going, no, because you're explaining it in your terms, not in mine.
Well, but I'm one of the curses that we see a lot of, Pete, is whoever invented the term high ticket. Because there's nothing wrong with the term, really, but in the hands of people with no sales or marketing experience that are suddenly trying to sell their $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 pounds course, but they've never sold anything sustainably for $500. And you look at the courses and go, it isn't worth what they're being told that they should be selling it at. And so Everybody's trying to parachute those steps, those numbers of customers, because I'd almost say, as one of my key BizUnLearned points is, for the vast majority of people, vast majority, particularly, solopreneurs that are trying to grow, they're not from sales and marketing backgrounds, until they've done 100 clients of whatever it is, a small pack, they're not going to be able to sell high ticket, not sustainably anyway. So it's almost created this hacking disease where everybody's trying to jump the steps that you're highlighting. And it doesn't work. They fall flat on their face.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the reasons is that because if you walk up to somebody in a bar and say, do you fancy spending the night together? The chances are you're going to get slapped. You may occasionally get lucky. But the reason why you go through the relationship building process is because there are questions that you can ask somebody 2 months down the line that they will be delighted to say yes to, whereas previously that you would have got a slap in the face. And the reason being is because you are somebody different to them, if that makes sense. And you then say, who are you to your partner? You're somebody who is kind, who is caring, who is loving, who is supportive, who is fun. And so they know that, and that's what they're getting out of it. And again, just in the same way, it's like a lot of guys, if they go out, especially younger men, when they're going out, they don't actually understand what the opposite sex are looking for. Yeah. So when they're kind of like showing off and doing all the other bits and pieces, it's like what you're selling is not what they're buying, because you're not looking at it from their point of view. There's one of the things I love is like, what the best chat up line in the world is, tell me about yourself. Because once you've then done that, and again, the best salespeople in the world, they will seek first to understand and then to be understood. When we do like speed networking and stuff like that, I will always let the other person go first. Yeah.
Right.
When we do speed networking, we did that a couple of weeks ago. I'll always let the other person go first. The reason being is because when I'm then explaining what I'm doing, I'm tailoring my explanation to what it is that they do.
I only saw it recently. I do know this of old, but it's a Nelson Mandela talked about story. I think he said it, but it's not one of his particularly. And it's to do with learning leadership from his father, who was tribal leader, whatever it was, amongst, when they were younger. And he used to go to all these meetings, and it was the big kind of powwow, and fundamentally, first thing, when I say powwow, I'm drawing a circle because everybody could see everybody else's faces in the process. And then the father's fundamental principle was he spoke last. Because yes. I used to do this with football teams of all things. When I'd say to the managers, you know how it's called a team talk at half time, but you do 97% of the talking. So it should really be called the manager rant, because they don't speak. And my point would be, not only do they not speak, the moment you've played those cards, they're not going to say anything in public counter to what the perceived leader's position was. So that point with Mandela's father that he learned, the father spoke last, because the father's not necessarily saying, very much Bill territory, everybody hadn't necessarily got a vote, but everybody had got a say. And then the top man in that context made the final decision. And it was one of Mandela's fundamentals, the A, everybody gathers so that we can communicate and see each other, and B, the top person creates the atmosphere where everybody at least feels heard, and then we kind of, quote, decide together, albeit it may be one person making the final decision. Even these are fundamentals, though, Pete, that we don't see in even some of the huge businesses that Bill's talked to for many years.
And it goes back to one of my favorite sayings, which is none of us is as smart as we all are together. It's the reason why we have podcasts like this. It's because what you then got is, as you can probably tell, we've got various cameras and other bits and pieces going on here. And the more camera angles you have on a problem, the more you're going to get an understanding. It's like the story of the two scientists, and they're arguing because somebody says that's a triangle. And the other one says, no, it's a circle. No, it's a triangle, it's a circle. What they're both doing is looking at a cone from, kind of from 90 degrees. And that's kind of what reality is like. And so when we're doing podcasts like this, when we're basically, what we're trying to do is describe something that no one person could describe, because it's too vast and it's too complex. But also, with our different camera angles and our different experiences, what we're doing is we are helping to describe the shape that you then become aware of. And by listening to all of those guys and then making your decision, A, as you say, everybody's feeling empowered, but also you're then making the smarter decision, because we've all been in situations where you're going, that's not going to work. And I've told you it's not going to work, because and it might not be you that said it, it'd be somebody else that said it. It's like, guys, there is a very, very clear reason why this isn't going to happen, but it's not being listened to. And then you just have to sit back and watch the train wreck. So, and that's where then intelligent leadership fails and goes out the window. And you say, that's a real shame because it didn't be that way. We did know what we didn't think.
So, Bill, apply some of this to, whether it's our little fun subject of US PMP, and I'll say it because he might not. Pete is Prince 2, the UK project managery bit, but he has his own views on that subject too. But it's one of where me and Bill came in the door, if you like, Pete, was for all this, what is often excellent tool. But again, as we said earlier, tools are as good as the operator, the user of the tools of project management, wherever it comes from. But Bill will quickly go to kind of state of the nation scores. If America is making $5 trillion a year and costing $8 trillion, the great entrepreneurial superpower is losing money. Then Bill will go, $2 trillion of that reported failure is attributed to failed projects. So it becomes a terrific area to look at this whole area of the fact that we've got the tools, but we're still failing.
And it's interesting as well, because it's like, obviously in terms of project management, yes, there are lots of methodologies, but the thing about it, at the end of the day, every single person, every human on this planet is a project manager. Because if you boil it down, essentially a project is anything where there are multiple sequential steps. And it can be building the ISS through to kind of like taking your kids on holiday, or even just putting up a shelf. They're all projects. So for me, the key is like, and it's, I was actually thinking about this because obviously India was coming on the call, and it's almost like, because project actually focuses on the project, what you should almost call it is outcome management. Because with a lot of things, they focus.
A project by definition is a unique effort with a finite beginning and a finite end.
That's it. Things which I love. And I love, again, because it's like, as we said, in terms of Prince 2, Prince 2 has its roles. I wouldn't want to be involved in any project where you had to use Prince 2. So, but it's like playing golf. Yeah, what you do is you choose the right club. I'm not particularly good at it. I like filming it because we have drones and other bits and pieces, and it's really cool.
I play pure golf.
Yeah.
But because for me, one of the key things, and if you actually look at project management, one of the things which I love and which I apply actually as far more to projects than I would ever apply Prince 2 is commander's intent.
Absolutely. I've been judged by that a lot, and I do mean judged. Okay. I was Black Ops General and in Saudi, and they're like, we don't do it that way. And I'm like, well, I do. And of course I was third generation military, and even my grandmother, when I got in trouble, she was like, always like, go in there, your head high, click your heels together. And it's like, when you stick it in my ass, don't break it off. All right, be ready to be judged.
That's only polite, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody has to have limits.
And I'm like, I might have broke some rules on that. And they were like, well, I told you to do this, and you did it, but you really kind of pushed it to the limit, Yes. And I'm like, I did, but it's done. That type of thing.
Yes, it's then operated within constraints. So you've then got things in the military concept like collateral damage.
Absolutely. I've been told a number of times, you shot some of the wrong people. My bad. I might have fucked up. Job's done.
I was developing a Dungeons and Dragons game. I know it sounds like a really weird thing to say. And they said, what sort of character?
Do you know my buddy, Lord Richard Garrett? Electronic Arts, D&D, we used to skydive together. He's from Austin, Texas. But he sold off his company and made millions in stock. But he did the private pilot thing and the Demons game and all of that shit. He did all of those games, And I think he was the first one to put Dungeons and Dragons into software, and that's where he sold off his company to Electronic Arts. And
that's very cool.
But he did Privateer and all of that type of stuff. He was a really cool guy, and his house in Austin, Texas was literally like a castle. He had like secret passageways and all kinds of shit, man. He always threw the best Halloween parties. He really did.
So the reason I mention it is because they said, kind of like, how would you define your character? What sort of character are you?
Avatar.
And I said,
sure.
Yeah. And I said, I would like to be, with this, all the shit's going down. I said, I would like to be the person who looks up the mountain and sees like the big fuel tank, which is kind of like behind the enemy, where a single shot will detonate that and take them out.
Yes.
So I am always looking for the smart and elegant solution. Because I always remember my grandma used to say, it's engineering. Yeah. My grandma always used to say, an engineer is someone who can do for a penny what any fool can do for a pound.
Sure.
And I like that. It's the elegance of it. It's like, what's the smart answer here? Because a lot of time people go into things either gung-ho or they're doing things because that's the way it has always been done. Monkeys and cages and bananas and all the rest of it. But you go, actually, no, let's just sit down, take a moment. What's the smart thing to do here? What's the clever thing to do where we can get the result that we want, because we define what done looks like with the like going with the flow, working with the grain of what we have.
So on your drawing earlier, when we were still doing the railways before we went to the aviation version, when we still had our customer journey railway, on that little drawing, if you take from where they don't know you to them where they love you, because they view the relationship different, everybody's changed in that process. So now they're raving fans and that kind of language. But we go back to the starting point here, given that, the business failure rate in US and UK, most of the developed world is comfortably 70% plus in the 5 years. It's about 4.5 years when people just close the door because they've just had enough for the most part. They're not broke, but they're just tired is the biggest reason. Well, if we go back to, because certainly the stuff we want to do is, if we've got all these tools and we've got masterclasses coming out of every orifice of our bodies, but the failure rate, there's something hugely wrong in this. So if we go back to that starting point of where people are setting up businesses that are almost 80+% guaranteed to fail by 96% over 10 years. So what's, from your view of that customer journey or that sort of design stuff that I would get into, what have they got to do differently? Because the carte blanche, whether it's the front end or the back end and the project management and the execution end, that whole paradigm is not working for most people who come to operate or play in that particular D&D game.
So are we talking about in terms of somebody starting up a business?
Yeah, let's go back there, because it's almost like there's a bad seed, isn't it?
So, I mean, and again, this comes back to a concept which, I came across through Agile, which is minimum viable product.
My God, don't mention that. He's
I'm going to, because it's how I would describe it.
We're just
Besides which, we want a bit of conflict. We want a bit of drama on this.
Yeah, we want to, yeah. So there is good bits that can be taken from Agile, just for the watcher's point of view, before Bill goes green and turns into something. So a good bit you got out of Agile. We'll go there. Yeah.
I think what we're saying is, having shot Agile in the head, there are bits that Bill would probably want to police from the body. Would that be true to say? So going back to your question, is it's got to be about testing it. Because what you want to do is say, what is the most efficient, again, the most smartest way to actually test your concept to make sure that there's a market for it. Yeah, because it's a bit like an engine. Because, and actually this is relevant, because as well as building stuff, people also come to me when stuff is broken. And I say, your business is like an engine, a bit like a petrol engine. So what you've got is you've got fuel and you've got air. And then you mix the two together in a cylinder, and then you compress it, and then there is a spark. When I was a kid, I had a motorbike. I say a kid, I was like 18. I was at university, and it stopped working. And the AA guy came out. So the mechanic turns up and he says, "Mate, if an engine isn't running, there's basically 4 possible things. There's no fuel, there's no air, there's no compression, there's no spark." He says, if you've got fuel and if you've got air and you've got compression and you've got spark, the engine should at least turn over. And so after a while, it started to occur to me that a business is a little bit like this, because people come up to me and say, business it's not working properly. So do you have customers? Do you know where they are? Can you reach them? Do you have a product or service that they want? The mixing it together is your marketing.
This is what gets called product market fit today, Pete, isn't it?
Is your sale. Yes. So if you've got a business and it's not working, it's because either you don't have a sufficient amount of customers to sustain you, or you can't reach them, or because your marketing isn't quite right, it's taking you're advertising to the world and their dog, so you're actually burning your marketing dollars that way. Your product and service isn't quite right. Either it doesn't really fit their needs or it's become obsolete. Your marketing isn't right because it's not explaining to these guys why this is right for them. And this is one of the big ones, actually, in terms of the point of sale. And this actually goes back to what you were talking about, Mark, in terms of a lot of people, they start just to try and sell courses. The amount of people I've seen who are afraid to ask for the sale, and they say, oh, let's just put it on a landing page. Why are you putting it on a landing page? This is quite a lot. We have a rule, which is anything more than 3 figures, you probably want to do that face to face, mate. I know that there are exceptions. I seem to remember that it's like with Messenger, because business by Messenger and marketing apps and WhatsApp and stuff like that is growing. And I think the record is like $80,000 for a sale just using, Messenger. But the thing about it is if you've got, any sort of, decent size of product, you want to be doing that face to face. The reason being is because you want it to be a two-way conversation. The best car salesman, what they'll do is if they're selling a car, they'll also find out who else is it. If you're a guy, is there a girl, is there a wife, are there kids? Because what he will then do is find out what her concerns are, as well as the guy who's buying it, or indeed vice versa if she's come to the showroom. Because what he's doing is he is not only converting the person he's talking to, he's also arming that person so they can convert any other stakeholders. The same would be true in B2B. A lot of the times when we're working with folks, it's the C-suite that's going to make the decision. We're not talking to somebody who's on the C-suite. We're talking to somebody who's really, keen to do what they've asked us to do. But what we do is we take the time to arm him so that when he goes to the C-suite and the CFO goes, right, what's the ROI going to be? He can answer that question. If the chief technical officer says, what's the impact of this? That's fine. All the security stuff is dealt with. So you need to be able to have that sort of conversation where it's interactive, if that makes sense. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. But like I say, literally just to go back and finish off answering your question, it's that. Find the best way and the simplest way to test that, because what you want to do is, it's like if you were building, Lancaster or a B-17. What you want to do is basically build a simple version first, test it, make sure the engine fires, make sure it runs, make sure it can go down and, get off the runway without piling into the trees. Once that is done, then we start to refine, we start to expand, start to develop. But without that, and so many, if you remember the .com bubble, so many people are just going, oh, we don't need to do that. It's the web, isn't it? Therefore, let's pile lots of money into it without actually testing it.
I want to give you a real world scenario and see if I can throw a monkey wrench in this. I've been working with Jeff Walker's team. You probably know of
Product
Jeff.
Launch Formula, Jeff, Pete, PLF.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been working with Jeff Walker's team, put together a hell of a fucking plan. I mean, Mark even went through it and said, God, you actually spend this much time on this stuff? Oh my God, this is a huge plan.
If he's going to do a plan, Pete, it's going to be a proper plan.
The end was $1. $1 damn dollar. And we've been getting surveys back from people on my list that said, I don't feel like no one's looking at me. I don't feel like I can get a promotion. I don't know what my career is going to look like. Yada, 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 yada. And I need help with risk management. Every single one of those things that were on those surveys, and all of those surveys came back with that. And all of those surveys came back also saying, I would like a community of like-minded people. And I'm building a membership program for like-minded people. And all you had to do is take a chance, $1. We've got some people I've offered it to for free. Mm-hmm. And yet they don't show up. How many people today just want to complain about their damn problem and not fucking fix it?
Now, go on, Pete, take that, because I've got my views on his problem on this, but this is your subject, so let's hear yours.
A couple of things spring to mind. The first one in terms of surveys. If you ask somebody on a survey, did you say, would you like a community of like-minded people? So did they volunteer that information?
Box type of thing. And that just happened to be one of the options.
What people want, there's a lovely phrase, and again, this is one of my all-time things, is sell people what they want, give them what they need.
Sure. That's reason healthy fucking foods don't fucking work in St. Petersburg, Florida. Because motherfuckers want French fries and be fat. They don't give a shit about your healthy fruit. They want McDonald's. Okay.
So in answer to your question, because it depends whether they do actually want a community. And also whether they'd actually be slightly scared. What they actually want is a friend group. but they'd have to make those friends. So they might be, slightly nervous about it because everything is a cost benefit transaction. Yeah. Yes. And the perceived workload and all the rest of it that goes into it, because we've done loads of these for free.
Hold on a minute though, Bill. If we go further up the line, the old line, Pete, about the doctor that's jumping in the river to keep getting people who are drowning out of it, but he never gets a chance to go upstream and see who's throwing the buggers in there. So let's go.
Certainly, that's a job for the police.
Yes, well, maybe they were jumping in, but you know what I mean. Because if we go further up the line, and Bill's giving you a part of something that he's fascinated to the point of would probably explode about, because if you go further up the line, he's got a database of 15, 20,000 people, depending on how you configure it. They have come together through a variety of different places, if you like. But what they haven't come from, for the most part, is buyers. They haven't been introduced to Bill in the selling capacity. So you can see the engagement. You can see that they like his background, and they probably get, because of the hat and the beer, and it's funny and it's a bit irreverent. So they must like his style. But the big but that maybe a project you and I can circle back on is they don't seem to associate Bill with somebody that they buy stuff from. They like hanging around. They like his stuff. They like being in the place where his knowledge, and he'll take a position on things, and they're often project management-y, so they're in his purview, but they never ever, for the most part, came to Bill saying, I'm looking to buy something, barring a very small amount. So it's like he's got this fan base, but they just don't associate with Bill, despite PLF and a terrific plan and email follow-through and all they didn't buy. So it's almost a case study for someone like you to rip into at some point in time.
Absolutely. And I've even got a testimonial from the damn deputy director of IT for the fucking United Nations. He's like, I got this promotion because of Cowboy. He fucking says it. And it's like, what the fuck? You can't risk $1? Give me a break. So explain that to me. Do people just not want to have some problem solved?
So here is my answer, because like I say, anything is basically cost versus benefit. Now, if we're saying that the costs, if we're basically saying, right, it's $1 and it's 1 hour. So that's quite small. But then the perceived benefit, because again, don't forget, this is about what they think they're going to get out of it. And then also the trust, because, and this is the thing, because everyone knows cost benefit, but there is a trust multiplier. Yeah. Because and that's why a lot of the time people are going, okay, the cost is quite low. The benefit is quite high. I'll give you an example. Because you guys know each other, if Mark told you, Cowboy, that if you could lend him $100 today, you'd get $200 back. I mean, you'd probably tell him, no, don't be silly, mate, just here's $100. But you would do that because you trust him. If you had somebody else come up to you, just someone off the street, and say that, the chances are you wouldn't. Now, you'd make 100% return.
Well, that's the point on the testimonials, is to create the trust. That's the point on the testimonials.
One of the interesting things about testimonials is, how many people actually watch them? I mean, I don't know if it's written or stuff, or indeed read them, but also how much do they associate with the person? There are 4 objections. Yeah. Because again, we're going back to the reasons why people don't buy. So there are 4 objections which we have is, I don't have the time.
I see that.
You see the hat.
I don't have the money.
Hat's on.
Yes, I see that.
This doesn't work in general, or it doesn't work for me.
Well, yeah, that's always the big thing. Why would it work for me? But why would you not risk $1 to find out when every person who's been involved has gotten a promotion?
It's not, yeah, because that's the thing. It's not, it then becomes the dollar is irrelevant. Why are they not taking action? They're not doing it because they can't be bothered. They're not doing it because they're even worried about the dollar. There is something that is stopping them from associating.
Why are they complaining about not making progress?
See, Pete, he will hear and get told that people want all these things. They will talk to him, whether it's people I introduce him to, they will do all that. But then he will offer solutions. And so I'm just an operator, just give me that. He doesn't put himself at the front, but he does try and master this. as a lot of people do, then crossing that bridge into, I've got people, Keith, Keith, you did his ads, Keith Trubshaw. Keith met Bill, and one of his responses was, you can get access to a man like Bill for $50 a month. And you go, yeah, Keith, if you see the value. So the value perception of what Bill can do is very high, but the sales follow through, completely huge to the other end of the spectrum, does not compute. The hat says, by the way, we're making summary points, by the way. The Englishman takes his hat off because they don't work.
That is not a good look.
Hat.
Tell you what I can do is I can do my, this is what I call my helicopter
There's
pilot
the helicopter
look.
one.
I will angle it back. Actually, no, I'm not going to, because I was going to say so you can see my face, but that might not be such a good thing.
There's a good BizUnLearned to go out on that. People have, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, and it's for another time really, but getting people to realize that they've got a network, whether they like it or use it or not. And it's a behavioral thing that they all do things with. And you can grow a business through the relationships in that network and then all of the customer journey things that you're talking about. And then, you can get scientific later, but let's build a relationship base first. So if Bill's got that relationship base and he fits a profile of he's a super expert in his field, but that doesn't mean he's a sales or marketing guy. He'll study the hell out of it, but it's not really what he wants to do or, quote, should be doing. So what's that unlearn point? What does a man like Bill do in that situation other than hiring people like you? But joking aside, what's the workaround?
Well, again, and this actually goes back to the whole, the reason behind like some sort of minimum viable product is because we've done this. We've kind of like fallen into this trap as well, whereby if you go out and do surveys, the thing about it is what you then have to do is to put something and actually test, do people take action? Because what people say they do and then what they do are not always the same thing. So, and the other thing you also then want to do is, and you've probably already done this, but you then basically have like multiple different landing pages. Yeah. So you're then basically testing different aspects of the message. The other thing about it as well is, can you then talk to these people? Because again, if I sat here not having seen,
I offer them the time and everything else, but to tell you the truth, to me, and I'm not a marketer and I'm not an emotional intelligence. I can give you those answers, but to me, it seems like more people want to fucking whine about their problems than to solve their problems.
There's definitely an element of that. But you see, the interesting thing about it is that if I was to sit here, having heard roughly about what it is you do and say they are doing this because, I'd actually be falling into my own trap, because the people who know are the people who are not taking action. And so what we need to do is we need to look at it from their point of view. And if we don't understand their point of view, then we need to, the next question is, right, why did this not work? How do we find out? How can we set up some sort of dialogue or find out what is blocking it? Because otherwise what we're doing is we're guessing.
Well, isn't that the point of a survey? Tell me what you want.
Yes and no, because a survey is a series of one-sided questions. And also the fact, again, would you like a community of like-minded people? And again, people go, well, yes, because that sounds like the right answer. That sounds like the sensible thing to want.
Question. That was not the question. I didn't ask if
you want I thought it was.
Like many people. I said, option. What would be something that would help you? Check boxes. Ding, 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 ding. And one of them happened to be a community of like-minded people. And they checked it.
My counterpoint is the fact that actually having a conversation with these guys is going to work better than a survey.
I agree.
Sure. I will line up a case of beer and speak with all 20,000 of them tomorrow.
Well, there's ways that we can do that, Bill, but let's do our wrap up, because that's for people listening. This is the put that somehow they've got to get that customer journey, that drawing you did, Pete, in terms of that. It pretty much is the key to the kingdom. No matter what their background is, they've got to see a route to customers by whatever means, and they've got to validate that their product is something those potential customers want. And if they can't, that's not a sustainable business. Period. That's got to be.
Yeah, you've got the railway line and then you've got the engine that runs along it. If you can build both, then you're laughing. Most people don't get that right, which is why most people fail.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, guys. Uncle Bill, take us out.
Kate, I gotta say, you're probably one of the most productive people, inspirational people we've had.
Thank you.
On our podcast. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
Pete Burnett Visuals.
Okay.
On Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Yeah.
Cool.
PeteBurnettVisuals.com.
Cool. And guys, hey, I mean, we're wrapping up another episode. Remember to like, comment, and share. We'd love to love. Hey, and don't forget to hit that damn subscribe button, because if you go our damn channel, then we get bigger people in too. Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. Always good to speak to you. I will be in touch very soon.
It's been a real pleasure, guys.
Easy.
Have a great day ahead.
Bye-bye.
Remember to like, comment, share, and hit the subscribe button. That helps us grow our channel, which helps us get larger guests.